Welcome to the Explainer. If you're a school administrator or part of a public school's financial team in Lampung province, you already know that proper funding is literally the heartbeat of your operations. So today, we are unpacking something absolutely crucial together. We're looking at the brand new 2026 technical guidelines for the Regional Educational Operational Assistance Fund. Yeah, that's a mouthful, so we'll just call it the BOPD, right? Let's take all this dense text and break it down into clear, actionable insights. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a solid agenda here. We're going to cover the primary mission of the BOPD program, the actual fund allocation amounts, the specific honorarium rules for honorary staff, and then the guidelines for school fund usage. After that, we'll hit the strict prohibitions on fund usage, and finally, the oversight and reporting system. If you've been stressing over financial and compliance questions, don't worry, we are going to systematically address all of that today. Section 1, Misi Utama Program BOPD. Or the overarching vision for 2026. Right, so before we even think about crunching the numbers, we really need to understand the macro policy goals driving these funds. The BOPD isn't just arbitrary cash handed out to schools, okay? It's a highly targeted intervention by the provincial government. And this quote is the absolute bedrock of the whole initiative. The 2026 guidelines directly cite Law Number 20 of 2003 regarding the national education system. It states, and I quote, "The national education system must guarantee equal opportunity and improve quality to face local, national, and global challenges." That is a massive mandate. It provides the direct legal foundation for the provincial BOPD initiative to make sure no student is left behind just because of their zip code or economic background. Building off that national law, Lampung province took that grand vision and translated it into 4 core pillars. They see the BOPD fund as way more than just a budget line. It's an aggressive strategy to combat poverty and inequality through education. The goal, reduce high school dropout rates and drastically increase school participation, especially in what they call the 3T areas. That stands for the frontier, outermost, and underdeveloped regions. It's designed to help fund non-personnel and personnel operational costs so that schools can focus on the ultimate mission, building inclusive, sustainable human resources for the region's future. Moving on to Section 2, Besaran Alokasi Dana BOPD, the 2026 funding allocations per student. Now, what's really interesting about these numbers is how we shift from the overarching why to the very concrete what. How much funding is your school actually entitled to for the 2026 operational year? Well, the funding distinguishes between 2 tiers of schools. If your institution is designated as an Unggul school, which means a superior school or a center of excellence that surpasses standard national benchmarks, your allocation is 600,000 rupiah per student per year. But for regular public high schools and vocational schools, the regular tier, the allocation is 500,000 rupiah per student per year. The math is super simple. The province calculates your total fund based strictly on the number of enrolled students registered in the official national database. Section 3, Aturan Honorarium GTT PTT. The strict formulas for honorary staff. Okay, fair warning, this part gets a bit technically dense, but it is absolutely vital because these formulas dictate the exact payment structures for your non-permanent staff. We're talking about real impact on their livelihoods and your budget. First, let's clearly define who we mean. The guidelines use 2 main terms, GTT, which stands for non-permanent teachers, and PTT, which covers non-permanent staff. Think administrators, lab techs, security. To qualify for BOPD honorariums, these individuals must be non-civil service personnel, meaning non-ASN. They must be bound by a specific, fixed-term individual contract signed directly by the head of the school. And, critically, they absolutely cannot hold a similar non-permanent status at another state school. Let's walk through this formula step by step for the PTT, the administrative and support staff. The province created a system that explicitly scales their pay with their educational level. It's pretty logical. Every tier starts with a baseline, 50% of the provincial minimum wage, the UMP, then a specific percentage of the city or regency minimum wage, the UMK, gets added on top. So, staff with a bachelor's or master's, the S1 or S2 level, get a 7.5% UMK bump. Diploma holders from D1 to D3 get a 5% bump, and high school graduates receive a 2.5% bump. It's a really structured, predictable way to make sure compensation is fair across different educational backgrounds. Now, let's compare that to the GTT, your non-permanent teachers. Their pay relies heavily on their teaching load. If a teacher carries a standard load of 24 to 40 hours per week, they receive the maximum formula, which is 50% of the provincial minimum wage plus 10% of the local city minimum wage. However, for those teaching under 24 hours, the math completely changes. Their pay is strictly prorated. You take that 50% of the provincial minimum wage, divide it by the 24-hour baseline, and then multiply it by their actual teaching hours. It's designed to ensure schools only pay for the exact hours taught.
Number 4, petunjuk penggunaan dana sekolah, or what you can spend on.
And this brilliantly illustrates the practical side of things. Consider this your state-approved financial shopping guide for the upcoming year. The guidelines are incredibly specific about allowable expenses, and honestly, I love how they reflect the realities of modern education. Yes, for sure, you can fund standard things like new student admissions and basic utilities like electricity, water, and trash retributions. You can pay honorariums for extra duties, as long as it's under 11 months, and even reimburse transport costs for staff who have to physically go to Bank Lampung to withdraw the funds. But crucially, the guidelines flexibly support digital needs. You can use BOPD money for internet, web hosting, Google Drive rentals, and covering the costs of digital assessments, like ANBK and the province's own D-Smart platform. It's really built for a 21st century school environment.
Section 5. Larangan keras penggunaan dana. The absolute prohibitions.
Now, as a school administrator, you absolutely have to know where the guardrails are. Tone shift here, guys, because these are strict, non-negotiable prohibitions designed to prevent mismanagement. These are the absolute don'ts. You cannot deposit these funds just to earn interest for the school, and you certainly cannot lend the money out to other parties. No way. You are strictly forbidden from using BOG funds to construct new buildings or rooms. Capital expenditures are a completely different budget. Furthermore, you cannot use this for student or teacher study tours, you cannot pay out routine bonuses to your staff, and you cannot use it to buy basic student worksheets or LKS. Complete 100% compliance with these bans is absolutely mandatory.
Section 6. Sistem pengawasan dan pelaporan, accountability and team structure.
Let's move to this next part and see how this all builds together. Because knowing the rules, the formulas, and the prohibitions, well, that's really only half the battle. Executing proper reporting and establishing a transparent internal oversight structure is the final requirement. The 2026 guidelines make it crystal clear. You cannot just have the principal and the treasurer handling these funds behind closed doors. You are mandated to form a specific BPOD team. Step 1 is the principal, who acts as the head and person in charge. Step 2 is the appointed treasurer. But Step 3 is where the transparency really shines. You must include official members comprising 1 teacher, 1 non-teaching staff member, and critically, 1 member from the school committee. Bringing in a community committee member ensures that oversight is happening right there at the local grassroots level. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital question to ponder with your new BPOD team. How will your school optimize these 2026 BPOD funds for your students' futures? These guidelines give you the exact rules, but they don't dictate your specific strategy. I challenge you to use this financial playbook not just as an exercise in bureaucratic compliance, but as a real, tangible tool to elevate the quality of education and the future prospects of every single student walking your halls. Thank you so much for exploring these guidelines with me today, and I wish your school immense success in the year ahead.